I want to ask you about this temperament question you keep getting. First, just, I mean, what has been your reaction to this, the campaign trail focusing a lot on one of your interviews with another journalist?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not the first time that we've seen women candidates asked about temperament. It's a word that also gets used for, show dogs and racehorses. It's not one that ever gets used for male candidates.
Well, someone ought to do a wellness check on Katie Porter, and I mean that seriously, because the one California election result that we will not need an entire month to figure out is the fact that crazy woman Katie Porter, who we've often dubbed to be the Wicked Witch of the West, not only lost in the jungle primary, but she was not remotely competitive. She didn't even place. As a matter of fact, in order to even see her name on the list, you have to go to the website and hit the expand to see all candidates button, which really is remarkable when you consider the fact that for a long time, she was considered the front runner in California. It was widely deemed to be her race to lose. And then this insane psychopath simply opened her mouth and said, "Hi, I'm Katie Porter. And today I'm doing an interview with my crazy eyes. Do you want to vote for me? You don't want to vote for me? I'm going to storm off the set. How dare you ask me questions about basic things like, what's my campaign platform? What did that? Like, you remember that whole chronicle. Dang. You remember that whole chronicle, right? But I want to break this down today because not only is it hilarious to watch just a completely insane psychopath lose, although I'm sort of surprised she didn't do a little bit better, given, she does kind of represent a lot of Democrat voters. Like you look at No Kings protesters, you see a lot of Katie Porters, but still, it looks like in the recent moments following up to this election, when it was appearing like she was going to lose, she decided to go on this whole tirade that you may have missed, where she's essentially accusing the liberal California electorate and the Democrat Party for being sexist. You're only calling me crazy because I'm a woman. It's not because I domestically abuse my husband and my staff and I'm like literally an insane person. How dare you be sexist? And, well, it turns out that didn't honestly work all that well for her, because I think even a lot of females can attest to the fact that she is totally insane. Actually, I'm pretty sure the staffers, for example, were females, in that video or whatever. But it goes on there. And then apparently ever since she has kind of accepted to losing the election, we haven't even heard from her. No public reports of any campaign watch party last night. She hasn't said anything. She hasn't issued a formal concession. Just total blackout, a total vanishing on behalf of Porter, which really makes you wonder, what the heck is going on with her? Is she okay? Well, I mean, I think in many ways she's never been okay, but pretty hysterical. Yeah, she's definitely not all that happy about this, but let's break this down. I want to kind of do a video today, just the ode to Katie Porter. Okay. The ode to this absolute insane person that was actually was going to be the governor at one point. And then again, opened her mouth one time, showed her card of just the person she is once. And that was the end of Katie Porter's political campaign. Let's get into it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, I guess just to begin introducing this, so you take a look at the ballot from last night, and by the way, as we're recording this, Steve Hilton is still in first place. Quite an impressive performance. But you go all the way down, it turns out Katie Porter came in a distant 5th place. That is correct. 4.6% of the vote. Actually, last night she had 5, and quite ironically, the 4 a.m. ballot dumps have made the picture even worse for Katie Porter. So just an embarrassing performance all around. And do keep in mind, this was the same person claiming that she didn't need to expand her horizons or appeal to new voters or Trump voters or whatever to win the state of California. She was completely arrogant. I don't need their votes. Remember, she said that whole thing. And I just have to ask how that ended up working out for a person who somehow got 4.6% of the vote as the former front runner. Let's not forget. Pretty astonishing.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, man?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election? Yes.
Bye-bye.
What are you talking about? I don't need anyone else to win. Everybody loves me. I'm Katie Porter. Now, you probably remember the rest of that interview where after being asked fairly basic, non-hostile questions, she just storms off the set in anger and probably thought to herself, wow, people are going to think I'm so cool. I'm such a boss female. And then, everyone rightly just looks at that and says, what an insane, crazy person. I mean, what the heck is wrong with her? And to an extent, you almost watch that and question how that human being could get any votes in any state anywhere. People just don't immediately clock that person as, wow, like she is completely crazy. Like, wow, that is actually a psycho human being. But then again, as I said, maybe Katie Porter, you almost expected to do better given the fact she really does reflect the temperament of many Democrats out there. It's like it's so relatable to an extent. That whole performance, her whole act, the fact that she, was domestically abusing her husband and her staff and all that stuff, just a totally like crazy human being. Yeah, I mean, is that not the type of crowd that you see at No King's protest? But anyways, all of that in mind, you probably recall that this whole issue tanked her campaign, as did the abuse of her staff, as did the whole domestic situation from years ago. And you generally just got this picture. Yeah, Katie Porter is absolutely crazy. But what's hilarious is that in a last minute bid to save it, what she basically decided to pull out, once again, as usual, was the woman card. She basically said that, oh, anyone who's pointing out these very real flaws in my character that frankly transcend gender on many levels, that's because I'm the only major female in this race. And I kid you not. So this is her, kind of last ditch interview to try to salvage something. And let's just take a listen. And, this is quite the sight, to say the least.
I want to ask you about this temperament question you keep getting. First, what has been your reaction to this, the campaign trail focusing a lot on one of your interviews with another journalist, with this video of just you getting, that question constantly? Just what have you made of that?
Yeah, look, this is not the first time that we've seen women candidates asked about temperament. It's a word that also gets used for, show dogs and racehorses. It's not one that ever gets used for male candidates. And so I think temperament does matter. I think personality matters. I think leadership style matters. I think
yeah, so she actually went there, right? She tried to argue that people are only attacking her because she's a woman. Oh, when does temperament ever get used against male candidates? Well, let me actually correct that. I can think of two examples that directly come to mind. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Okay, it is, of course, Democrats and anti-Trumpers who constantly, how many different times have they talked about Donald Trump's temperament, right? His sort of personality, his leadership style. Now, people who support Trump like myself obviously are big fans of that, but let's not pretend as if that's never been a discussion in politics. And then the same even goes for Biden, right? They're probably opposite temperaments, but yeah, to a large extent, that was a thing as well. So first of all, Katie Porter's completely lying. And then secondly, okay, so what? You say you're a woman, so we can't speak about temperament, obviously, that's, by the way, look at the freeze frame, right? It's like she wonders why people think she's insane. Okay, hold on, just look at the thing we put on the screen. I just put the pause button randomly, and this is her. And she's like, why are people talking about my temperament? Gee, I don't know, because you like horribly mistreated a journalist. And by the way, even if you want to say that was one random instance of something and we shouldn't judge that, you have a long track record of losing your blank, just having severe anger issues against your staff, against your ex-husband. The idea that these types of things can't be brought up as you continue to this day to still act like the same human being, let's be honest, all she's engaging in is a pure desperation tactic, and clearly it didn't work, but that's pretty entertaining to watch, right? You're only saying that because I'm a woman. Not all women that I've ever known or met have thrown burning, melting hot potatoes, mashed potatoes at their husbands after a relatively minor argument, I think, over him not, what was it, cleaning the house or something like that. It was something like, something very trivial. And she just throws freaking mashed potatoes and then there's a whole lawsuit. Like that's not about you being a woman. It's about you being insane. You understand there's a difference? I guess not. Let's listen to the rest of this though.
intelligence matters. It's fine to ask about it. I just think it's a good question to put to everyone. Everybody in California had a chance to see me on the debate stage with the journalist. And I will tell you, I think when you look at those debates, which, as you know, can be high pressure situations, I showed that I was cool and calm under pressure. But I also, unlike some others who were cool and calm, the difference is I answered the questions. And I think that is the right kind of temperament to have to be governor.
You're the only woman in the race. And what has that been like?
Yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, I'm definitely the only one who spends a lot of time thinking about what shoes I'm going to wear. I'm definitely the only one that I think feels really sad when I learn that hair will not be provided. I mean, Steve Hilton has no hair, so that's, I think, easiest for him. He'll tell you. But look, I think we've seen, and I think people have seen this in their families, and there's actually research behind this. When times are tough, when stakes are really high, whether that's a family member dealing with a mental illness, whether that's can't pay all the bills.
Oh, no.
You know who figures it out? Moms. And so I think—
Oh, no. Oh, no. Imagine that. Imagine being in a really tough position and then, Katie Porter's going to come to your rescue, guys. Okay. I'd rather just blink. Okay. I'd rather. Dear gosh. But okay, you basically get the idea, right? This was the whole sales pitch she tried to make at the very last minute. Clearly 237,000 Californians did end up resonating with that message, but overall, in general, it did not work because largely, hey, you can claim on the debate stage, oh, I held my cool or something after intentionally doing so because I'm being accused of being a crazy person. But to be completely honest, major issues like this right here will never go away and never be unseen and really show her true personality, I would argue, to this day behind the scenes.
And the state could lose. Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money.
Yeah, well, how'd that all work out for you? How did it work out that the psychological research written by probably fake social scientists who look very much like yourself say, in times of crisis, someone like me, Katie Porter's gonna come to save the day. That's what the people want. And by the way, even just looking back on that video, she really asked herself, why are people asking questions about my temperament? It must all just be a bunch of sexist men. In many ways, I sort of wish Katie Porter had a bigger spotlight in the Democrat Party because I truly do believe she reflects a lot of the voters and really who a lot of these people deep down actually are. But still, I guess it became the case that even Democrats to a large extent were afraid of her, which, to be honest, I can't exactly blame her for because, just look at that human being. As I said, Wicked Witch of the West. And I do find it entertaining the number of kind of opportunistic moments that she tried to take advantage of in the election cycle, and every single time it fell flat on its face. Like, for example, when Eric Swalwell dropped out, we actually talked about this. Remember, she said, see, this is proof that we need a woman because we have Eric Swalwell and Epstein. And everyone's just like, oh, here she goes again, right? Why does she keep on doing this, And then same situation days before, she's like, they're calling me crazy because I'm a woman. That's a sexist trope. None of it was successful. However, what I find to be hilarious is that there is one thing Katie Porter was successful at, and that was actually screwing over the progressives and the other Democrat. Because as we kind of hinted at in a prior video, and I think is becoming increasingly clear when you look at these margins, it does appear that to a large extent, Katie Porter's presence in the race may have screwed over Tom Steyer. So just to recap, right, the best case scenario here for Democrats was that they were hoping they would lock Republicans out of the jungle primary because Becerra and Steyer, right, Steyer being the far left socialist progressive billionaire guy, oxymoron, the walking oxymoron, right, might end up getting first and second place. Well, the thing is, the other major progressive psychopath in the race besides Tom Steyer was, of course, Katie Porter. And despite the fact that Steyer was largely kind of taking away her vote share, I found it very telling that even in the months leading up to the election, when it became increasingly clear following her insane behavior she had no chance of winning, she refused to drop out. And you can fully imagine, I think it was even said publicly at some points, a lot of people were clamoring, hey, Katie, you got to get out of the race so Democrats can help consolidate their support. But obviously, as you know, asking Katie Porter to drop out instead of getting 5% of the vote is very sexist. You wouldn't say that for a male candidate. And so, you know, the just insane, like, narcissistic, crazy person that she is, she stays in the race. And in the end, we'll see how it all breaks down. But it does, in terms of the margins, look like she may have at least played a major role in helping to screw over Tom Steyer. So if that ends up being the final result, I have to say thank you, Katie Porter. Thank you for being this just like crazy liability that ended up, it would appear, screwing over your party and maybe to an extent just helping Republican turnout as a whole, because I would argue what we saw last year was sort of an energizing factor for Republicans, basically another reminder, hey, this is why we cannot allow the insane psychopath Democrats to win, because they're literally all like Katie Porter. And well, there you go. So we'll find out, frankly, what Katie Porter ends up doing next. As I said, I hope she does not retire from politics as a whole. You know, we really need this person to be in there, you know, truly representing what the Democrat Party is all about, which she does, you know. At least she's an honest Democrat. At least she shows you who she is. She doesn't try to put on this fake face of what the party actually stands for. So, you know, put her front and center. I don't know. She's going to run for president. That'll be fun. But all right, there you have it, guys. There was Katie Porter. We'll try to see, hopefully soon, what happens with the broader election picture. But for now, at least that's something we can kind of celebrate about, but also be a little bit sad about too, because, you know, again, you almost wish that she would be more front and center in the Democrat Party. But honestly, the Democrats were smart, right? In the several months leading up to the election, everyone else got in the race, right? Eric Swalwell and others, they literally entered the race to try to divert attention away from Katie Porter. Literally, they knew that if normal people saw Katie Porter, California would become a red state overnight. So they're like, hey, shut up. And then she's still there chirping, you know, why are you guys covering me up? Don't be sexist. I deserve all this spotlight because I'm Katie Porter. I'm melting, right? But there you have it. Anyways, that said, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace. By the way, given that we have not heard from Katie Porter, what do you guys think she's doing right now? I would guess, you know, all the curtains are closed in her room and she's picking out the flower petals. They'll vote for me. They'll vote for me not. The men are sexist. California's gonna reject sexism. She is such a terrifying person, dude. You know, this is maybe this is not the last of Katie Porter. Maybe she's literally plotting her revenge against the world as we speak, because you know, she will refuses to concede the election or even say anything. She just can't handle it. She's in her. This is not the last you've heard of Katie Porter. Anyways.